Here we are again. Lovely day out here today. And so much is going on that it's hard to know where to begin. One thing that's happened recently is I've had several conversations with people about health. Not surprisingly, having to do with health problems. Right? So what do? You do some research. Basically means you go on YouTube and listen to people talk, maybe experts or whatever, they got channels, and maybe they got lots of viewers, they want to keep things going. And when they talk, they do this all the time, wagging their hands at you, and it's like, do you mean to tell me if you stopped doing that, people wouldn't watch you? I guess maybe that's the case with these videos. It's like, because there's background going by, and it stops you from getting too bored, or paying too much attention to the content of what's being talked about. So anyway, some of these perspectives people have on health, basically there's a lot of confusion and kind of like, why is it so complicated? I mean, you got vitamins, you got exercise, you got gut flora, you got toxins, you got genetics, you got all this stuff. How are we ever supposed to, make sense of all this and get it balanced? And it's like, good question. It's a good question because you're not going to get it balanced. And why aren't you going to get it balanced? Basically, you're ignoring the Hoffman health theory. Well, what's the Hoffman health theory? It's pretty simple, right? Imagine a pendulum hanging motionless, right? Pendulum hanging motionless is the state of optimal health, right? So say you go out in nature somewhere where we haven't messed things up yet, and you find, some animals. They don't have tumors, they don't have all these sorts of problems that we have, high blood pressure, whatever. They're basically in a state of optimal health, right? So why are they in a state of optimum health? Or perhaps indigenous people, different parts of the world. Why are they and we're not? Well, when you think about lifestyles, the lives, the habits, the environment of people and animals existing in a state of optimal health, what is it about them? Well, they got almost no clothes on. Animals have no clothes on. They're outside all the time. They're in the sun. They're in the fresh air. They have no shoes on. Their feet are touching the ground. Right? This is basically the way that people evolved. There's evidence now, new evidence, actually it's not that new, but it's been ignored in paleontology, that Australian Aborigines actually go back far further than they thought. Not 70,000 years or so, but actually more like 200,000 years or more. Along with that is another idea linked that Homo sapiens sapiens did not actually come out of Africa, but they came from Australia. There's evidence for boats, navigation, artifacts around the world. It's blowing huge holes in things, but you can either ignore it, or not. So anyway, what happens when you decide to go on a different path with your culture? So basically, if you look at Aborigines, it's like they were around for so long. They still are, of course. But they didn't see the universe as something developing, or their culture is in progress, progressing towards something. They saw things as being eternal. So they're eternal. They're just basically part of eternity. That's why many things for them never changed. You know, the dream time, the lifestyle, everything else never changed because it didn't have to. And when you look at people like that, they're the happiest people in the world. So anyway, and I might add, it's like, what do we do when we can get away from all the bullshit, you know, working and all this stuff and staying stuck in the car or in your house all the time? What do? We go to the beach, out in the sun, take all our clothes off, right? Well, imagine if you lived like that all the time, and there you have it. The thing about the pendulum and health is that if you're not naked outside in the sun and the fresh air, basically surviving on what is around you, that is, hold on, this is another point. And that is, you've heard of invasive species, probably. So a certain environment, local environment, you know, has various species in it that have evolved together over time, and they interact with each other. It's all basically one thing. Nature is all one thing. The universe is one thing. But if you introduce a species that might be called what we would call an invasive species, it upsets things, throws things out of balance. So now you have, if not problems, you have, you know, a new dynamic, and it's going to take a long time for things to settle down. Same thing happened in Australia when they introduced, someone brought in dogs, you know, dingo. What happens with us is like the foods that we eat, for example, they don't come from right outside. They don't come from nearby. They come from thousands and thousands of miles away. So what does that do to the pendulum? Right away, because we're not existing in harmony with what is immediately around us, that starts that pendulum moving, right? So now say some other things happen to sedentary, for example. And sedentary, as a matter of fact, began with the abandonment of the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So when people stopped hunting and gathering, they turned to farming and livestock, which basically meant you stay in one place now. And you walk less, too, of course. You might do farm work, but it's not quite the same thing. So anyway, with where was I? With the equilibrium. Oh yeah, sedentary. So we're very sedentary today. Food comes from all over the place. We're exposed to all kinds of things, exposed to toxins, exposed to electromagnetic radiation, all kinds of stresses, fear, anxiety for all kinds of reasons. And what does all that do to the pendulum? Well, now you got the pendulum, sorry about that, swinging rather wildly, you know, woo, 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 woo. And people wondering, it's like, why is human health so complicated? Well, so say you try something. It's like, well, my health's getting kind of messed up, so I'm going to try something different. I'll try, you know, keto diet or some sort of exercise program or something like that. It's like, what does that do? Well, that goes bop into the pendulum, right? Pop. Sends the pendulum off in another direction. It's like, well, yeah, you changed something, but the pendulum is still out of balance. So yeah, pendulum is still out of balance, and it will always be out of balance. It will always be out of balance until you return to a unity with the environment, with nature itself. So anyway, getting back to what I mentioned earlier about the path that we took away from hunter-gathering to farming and livestock. And then, what's next? Did we make a conscious decision to switch our path to one of science and technology? Well, that's what happened. So now we're on this path of science and technology fairly recently, a couple hundred years. Whereas the time span of the Aborigines, 200,000 years. Now, whether or not we are going to last 200,000 years with this culture that we presently have, pretty slim chance, right? I don't think I need to go into all the reasons why, but it's basically our pursuit of science and technology is what is degenerating the life on Earth itself. All the things that you take for granted, the buildings, the machinery, the cars, all of it is all death. It all represents death. Because all those things are tumors, basically, on the universe, on the natural world. So it's like you can have a lot of tumors in your body, you know. I know people have multiple tumors. Oh, they're not necessarily cancerous, you know, but they're basically garbage dumps. They leach off the organism. They just sit there. They take away. They don't give anything. They take up space. They mess things up. So that's what we do. We mess things up. And the gall of it is that we think that we're civilized and that these other people aren't, that they are primitive, right? No, that's backwards. We're the ones that are primitive. You take everything that we've got, you know, you look at buildings and stuff around the world and cities and all this crap that we've constructed. What is it all really based on? You know, we like to think that it's based on, you know, cleverness and genius and art and science and things like that. It's like, it's not. Those things play a part, but it's based on slaughter, murder, genocide, enslavement. That's what this country's based on. This country was built on the murder of the Indians, genocide, enslavement, people from Africa. That's where the money came from, right? So where are we now? Well, hell, we're all wage slaves, right? We're still slaves. We're still slaves to the system. So anyway, the point is kind of that we shouldn't feel superior to people who are happier and healthier than we are and refer to them as primitive when all we've done is create a suicide machine for ourselves and the earth, which is the guillotine is halfway down right now. And what do people do? All the manipulations, all the forces acting on them from all different angles, health being only one of them. Caught in kiddie land, you know, something I should know quite well. You know, addictions of all kinds, stuck on a stupid screen all day long. They figured out how to hack your brain. So what do you do? How do you unsubscribe?